everybody, and welcome to a series that I will be recording that I will be calling The Anatomy of a Comboback. My name is Raid. I am a longtime veteran of playing Goal Line Blitz and Goal Line Blitz 2 now, and I've always enjoyed messing around with halfbacks and trying to make them work better. But recently I've taken my focus more to trying to teach the things that I do to make my halfbacks more relevant and to help others kind of figure out the best way to approach how to build players. Now, this was a pickup halfback that I set out trying to build a runner who would run combo style. And he's pretty well succeeded. His build doesn't look um, spectacular in any way, but he's got a lot of things working for him. Number one, his conditioning is 100. That is very important for any halfback anymore. Brace for impact does not work as well as it used to. It's not as good of a skill as it used to be. You need the more conditioning. You probably need a little bit more toughness. That's just how things work anymore. He's got 82 sprinting, which isn't fantastic, but it's pretty quick. It's quick enough to get the job done in a lot of situations, and it's cheap compared to a lot of sprinting that you can spend on. And when you're trying to go for a combo back, things are usually not cheap. So you need to find places where you can kind of shave points off safely and still make the back do the things you want to. Now, he's got 82 sprinting and 61 balance, and 52 footwork and 36 quickness, which a lot of people would think that is way too low of a quickness, but the point of keeping your quickness low when you do it is to encourage the back to use more of his footwork and balance to adjust and to keep moving in the general direction that he started. This is also helped by having a high sprinting, as the back will not want to slow down, start doing all kinds of moves if your sprinting is basically the highest skill. Now, I went over a confidence scale before in a video with Agerm that talked about how once you get past those certain confidence gates, halfbacks have certain behaviors. And one of those behaviors is based upon the physicals here, or at least one general one. When your sprinting here is at 82, I used to think that that was a 75 confidence gate. But as it turns out, there is no 75 confidence gate. The same way that quickness doesn't give you any faster turning at 75, a skill doesn't have any more confidence in it at 75 than it does at 65. Your player will still rely on that skill the same way. So, right here, this is actually a 75 confidence. And right here is a 55 confidence, 45 confidence, actually not 75, 65 for that one, and a 35 confidence. The problem is that for certain styles, you really have to lean into these. And I mentioned in that video that slippery was a really good style to run this season. But as you'll see through this video and probably videos in the future or a video in the future when I actually focus on slippery, that basically it takes a lot of things to run properly, but the number one thing that it takes is getting sprinting 2 confidence gates above anything else. Now, I thought this guy could run slippery because I thought there was a 75 confidence gate, but there's not. So this is 65, this is 55. He's not going to think that the sprinting is his first weapon. So in the slippery style that wants to go upfield as much as it can, if it's not looking for that sprinting first and foremost, it generally will just ignore stuff on the outside. It won't try to run around people because it doesn't think that it can. It's kind of a downside, but live and learn. And the more things that I learn, the more things that I can pass on to you guys. So that's excellent. Up here at the top, going back to the idea of the actual combo back that we're looking at here, you can see that I have again skimped on power running because power running is very expensive. Elusive running is too, but I wanted to make sure that I was getting that next gate of confidence over the power running, because if he was going to rely on one of these skills, I'd rather him rely on the elusive running first and use the power running as kind of a backup. The 10 gap won't always guarantee that, but it'll make him lean towards the elusive running, and that gives him a little bit of a benefit in my opinion. I think it's better to lean a little bit towards elusive as a combo than to lean towards power. It just ends up working out better for you overall, even if you're not going to go as fast or as aware. But that being said, I highly, highly recommend a very high amount of carrying aware. And the reason for that is that other styles like power, slippery, north-south, and elusive all have pre-built kind of coding into them where the player wants to go outside. He's got waypoints that he wants to hit out there on elusive. He wants to just go out there and hit his corner, and he wants to run straight to the sideline when he does it. And power likes to go outside, but it likes to follow along your blockers while it does so. And so it's always trying to find the edge, but it's doing so basically along your blocking. And the more awareness that you have, the more that it'll try to take that outside route along those, blockers. So if you're using a power back who's got a lot of sprinting, it's a good idea to have a lot of awareness. When you're talking about north-south and slippery, those two styles really have a drive to continue moving upfield built into them. They don't like to stop or think about taking like a big outside roundabout looping path. They don't like to try to go to the edge very often. They like to cut it back inside, and they like to be aggressive and try to work their way upfield through power moves and elusive running. But the way that the meta has everyone crashing down as heavily as they do on Pursuit now means that when they start attacking upfield, the only openings are to the outside. So the styles end up being kind of, I wouldn't say bad, especially not North-South. North-South has a lot of merit this season, but they become difficult to run because you have to have a back who will take advantage of the situations that are given to him instead of just following along with what the style wants to do. Now, the flip side of that coin is that if you're running north-south and you're a power runner, you probably don't need much carrying awareness because it'll keep you going straight up field. You want some still. You don't want to get blindsided. You want to be able to hold on to the ball, and you want braced for impact to impact or to fire if you have it. But it's not as dire for the style. But Slippery kind of needs it to see those outside gambits, and you don't want like a really high elusive running or power running with Slippery because those will make the back once again think about taking on people or making really hard cuts that kind of pull it back to the inside instead of working those outside angles. So Slippery is one of those styles that this season you could actually go basically without any power running or elusive running to run. But Combo here, it likes a little bit of both. You can run it with just one or the other, but if you're going to do that, there's almost always a style that's better for you to use. There's a few reasons for that. The other four styles give you bonuses. They say when you're selecting them that they give you bonuses to your elusive running, to your power running. But if you want your backs at all when you put them on one or the other, it's more than just that. As you go into power and north-south, you lose acceleration and you gain balance. Now, I don't know if that's overall balance or if it's balance regeneration that you gain, but since quickness is what you gain with elusive running and slippery, because not only is your acceleration boosted, but your turn rate gets faster. It's probably either a straight bonus to footwork or balance, but there's not much of a way to tell. I would assume it's footwork because it works to keep you more upright, and balance, if you just had more of it, would just basically give you a bigger bar, which is a good thing in and of itself. So it's hard to say for sure, but we know that it gives you those bonuses basically for helping you stay upright or helping you move faster. And in essence, they also give you a penalty to the other one. When you're running on elusive or slippery, you have a penalty to your balance. It's harder to stay on balance. So it's always give and take with those. But combo sits right there in that nice little middle where it doesn't give you or take away anything. It's just there. And well, that's a good place to be. I'm not sure if there are any bonuses to combo. Like maybe combo gives you the straight balance bonus, and that's why it's not as impressive as the footwork bonus that you get from slippery or north-south, but it does seem to have some sort of way of keeping itself a little bit more balanced uh, than if it was just straight, no bonuses here. So I suspect there's something going on there. build here isn't anything spectacular, like I said before. You know, the caps that I'm going to are pretty low in some areas to save basically points. Um, good caps on these to make sure that I'm getting good value out of them while still keeping them, you know, at least trying to keep them. I kind of screwed up here to where one is the heavy priority, but for a combo back, because they have so much of an open uh, decision making when they start running. There's no impetus on them to start going outside or inside before they've even read the defense. It's not as important to get that first instinct of wanting to take off all the time, because you can use your awareness to just kind of read the field and make good decisions anyhow. So while slippery is another style that really likes carry awareness, it's a style that needs that kind of push to the outside, whereas combo will just seek it out on its own. But since you have less acceleration and less turning rate than in both slippery and elusive, unless you are trying to go for some sort of split on these skills, it's oftentimes better to just run one of those. Um, if this guy didn't have any power running, and instead had invested more into elusive running, he'd probably do better on elusive. Just because the elusive running is going to push him more in field when he wants to take people on and wants to stop to fake them out. And it will slow down the general idea of what this build tries to accomplish when running on combo. Because you don't have the fastest acceleration on combo, and you don't have the highest quickness in this build. You kind of have to either keep moving or find the very best places to stop and wait, and then break it back to the outside for it to operate. Now that I've got done talking about all that, of course I picked sure-footed because that is just hands down one of the best mobility options you can take. Even if you think that you're not going to get a lot of benefit out of it because you've got a very low quickness and a very high balance, it's very, very good for when you do need it. When it kicks on, you have done something spectacular to the defense, and now you need to run away. For a lot of halfbacks, it kicks on, and then when it kicks on, that's when they can do something spectacular to the defense. But if your back is focused on his balance in the first place, when he throws himself off balance, it's usually because he just pulled a really sneaky move and he needs to get away now. So this works out exceptionally well. And of course, brace for impact is basically required taking for any halfback at this point. Now, let's look at his totals in the game. I kind of screwed up. I got 2 sets of power games in dry. I didn't get around to getting the power games done in the rain. But I figured since this guy basically isn't really a power runner in the first place, that it wasn't going to affect things too much in terms of actually comparing, because even if it's going to be a little bit higher, it's not really his thing. And I'll go over this in other videos when I get to it. probably go over Slippery first, because as you can see, Slippery is his worst. I've organized them down here in the best first to the last worst. And yeah, you can see that he's got some consistency issues. Now, it's not like he can't do good on Slippery, but all these games are just kind of, especially down here towards the bottom end, you can see that he struggled in some of those games when he started not really finding the kind of room that he's looking for. Elusive is great, but because this guy doesn't have a bunch of elusive running, and elusive already tends to make you want to go to the outside, the only places that really open up for you when you start off attacking to the outside are to the inside. So you either have to be able to run around everyone or fake someone out on the edge, which he's not exceptional at. He's good, but he's not exceptional at that. Or you have to be able to cut it back upfield and fake people out and actually take people on with a high elusive running. And he doesn't have that. So if he cuts it back upfield, he tends to want to find some other way to run around. And it makes him run into basically traps on the inside of the field if he cuts it back, or just getting himself into trouble by cutting upfield when he shouldn't, trying to get away from outside pursuit. Elusive likes to run away a lot, especially if you put a very high awareness on it. So it didn't fare too well here. Power did okay, but again, that's because it was 2 games in dry, so it got the benefit of not having to deal with the rain and the slippery field. But overall, it performed a little bit better than I was anticipating, and I think that's just because the pathfinding is so good for the style, especially to the outside, which is where the awareness would want to drive you. So, it still finished third here in terms of like these games, but it's not bad. It was consistent for the most part, not as consistent as North South and Combo though. North South is very good this season. It's not amazing, but it's very good. It's driven to move upfield. If you have a lot of awareness, you can use it to bounce out. But it's even more averse to bouncing out than Slippery usually, which can get problematic if you don't have a lot of break tackle skill. But because North-South gives you the ability to really isolate your footwork and your quickness and really lean into one or the other, even though it's got an acceleration negative compared to Combo, it doesn't really feel like it because it utilizes the lower quickness that much better. It feels very much like Combo, and because of that, the back did very good with it in terms of his pacing, in terms of where he was attacking, but he was just too hesitant to take the big open things. Like, he did it in a few games, as you can see here, but then in other games he kind of just clammed up, went to the inside, and even though he's good at breaking tackles, he's not good enough to really kind of pressure that inside fully. Combo is more about getting that freedom of movement, so that way he doesn't have to choose which way he wants to attack first or which way he wants to draw the defense. He can just react to what the defense gives him and then adjust to try to um, make the play connect for him. Now, I've got some examples of this, and I pulled them up right here. They're going to be just a bunch of plays that I'm going to run through a little bit to kind of show you what makes combo running good in its own regard. Because as you can see, for this back, it's actually his best choice, and that's not something you see a lot. Combo is usually not the best choice for a back. It's a back that it's a choice that you choose because your back can't run anything else or has issues with it, and that's just the best that you can do with it. But without further ado, first play I'm going to bring up is something that Combo doesn't really get a lot of notice for, and that is that as a style, even for using as a wide receiver or a tight end, it does keep you quite balanced. It allows you to utilize a lot of footwork, and it keeps you smooth in your transitions, especially on adjusting to a ball. The balance of your receiver is incredibly important when you make the catch attempt. And so if you're adjusting on a ball and you're making a sharp movement and then you're running to the spot and then you have to slow down, or you can't really kind of make it smooth and connect nice and cleanly, it can cause a lot of issues with actually hauling in a ball, especially for somebody who's got basically no investment into it. He has no investment in his hands or receiving skills. I think he's got a little bit of route tech. But Combo is very good at being clean in catching, moving to the spot, and going. It is a pretty good style in general for receiving out of the backfield, and I like it a lot for using it on receivers in general. Now, it's obviously not going to give you the sharpest cuts or the fastest acceleration out of those cuts to really throw people off, but it's good at those kind of subtle adjustments and getting through cuts that aren't like really sharp, like carrying his speed through that. 36 quickness is usually not known for doing that, but high balance does a lot of things, and unless you're cutting up to 90 degrees, balance and footwork are the things that actually make that happen. And since he was given time to accelerate before, then had his cut, this makes him wide open. This can happen with wide receivers too, especially if you give them a lot of snap reaction. They don't need that much quickness if they're not going to be making those really hard cuts and being like short kind of gain guys. It's kind of a misnomer in that idea, especially since footwork really helps to get yourself adjusted to kind of make the catch along with the balance and keeping your balance level high. It's a very good style to run on those kind of players. North-south is also excellent to use on tight ends, but it's a little constricting in how it goes about its routes. And So depending on the kind of routes that you have running, sometimes north-south doesn't cleanly get through them. It keeps you on balance, but it just likes to go in straight lines way too much. It causes some weird things. Anyhow, I'm kind of getting off topic here because we're supposed to be talking about combo, which, as I said, is pretty darn good at receiving. That's just a little bonus here. It's not really one of the plays that I wanted to take a look at because that doesn't really show us what is good about him for running. That just kind of shows us a neat little thing that combo gives us extra, which is that it's good at catching out of the backfield. This play, I'm going to let it run through, and then I'll talk about what's going on and why combo is doing good for the back here. Now, at first glance, oh, don't do that to me. Come on. At first glance, this kind of just looks like a speed win. Blocking gets their edge and everything's cool, right? Well, here's the thing. Halfback gets the ball right here. And he's looking at the field. The play is drawn up for him to just go straight to the sideline. It's a pitch. He's supposed to go straight to the sideline and then cut around, letting the blocking kind of just get to their stuff. But he's seeing that blocking isn't really in position too well. And this guy right here is hesitating. He doesn't know whether he wants to dive down at first or whether he wants to go outside. He's kind of meandering just a little bit. It's not a lot. He doesn't meander there long. But in these few frames, he starts thinking, what am I going to do? And the halfback goes upfield instead of going straight outfield. This helps to draw the defender down as he is more afraid of a cutback when you start going upfield like that. Lets all the blocks get to their positions. Lets everything happen like that. And as he's doing this, he continues to cut upfield to get more and more room before cutting out. And then he plays with the angles to try to get as much room away from the pursuit as he can. He draws them infield with his straight upfield route after he gets done cutting it out like that and threatening the runaround. He changes the angle so that way they will get to him at this point, and then he can shift and continuously get a slightly better, a slightly better, a slightly better angle all the way until he has to basically run out of room on the sideline and get tackled. And in that way, he maximized the distance that he could have gotten out of that play. That's one thing that combo does excellently, is that it manipulates the routes that people take to your player exceptionally well. With his freedom of movement and his generally less fear of the sideline, he can play around with a lot of different angles of attack and really really help his blockers get to where they need to go, as well as just get himself extra room to work with and to sometimes break a big play. Now, once again, that didn't look anything too spectacular at first glance. Combo really doesn't. It never really wows people until you look at the stats. Uh, what starts off here is a pretty good setup. The blocking numbers are not great. Right now there's a +1 advantage for the defense going to that side. And now with that loose blocker in the backfield, there's a +2. This guy's doing a good job of getting in a position to try to help out, so it may go back down to a +1 here. But basically, as the halfback receives the ball, he cuts it out and gets by the first guy just through sheer, probably bad blitz aware, but elusive running does help to delay how quickly they can react to that. And he starts going outfield. But the blocking situation there on the outside is not great. There's a pancake. It's hard to see because he's still standing up on the screen as you're going tick by tick, but he's pancaked. But blockers are just coming loose. And so the halfback has been kind of working his way upfield little bits, trying to, right here he does a move to try to help slow down the break free of those guys. Turns and side strafes a little bit, and then turns back. So that way they're afraid of him either cutting it back or going upfield towards them to buy him the room to straight up take off to the side and get them trapped behind him to where now they are completely out of the play instead of being a legitimate threat. And then it's just a foot race. But most styles, when they hit this these kind of lines here on the bottom, will stay right along them and just avoid that sideline as much as possible, right up until they either will do like a sharp fake or a step out of bounds. Combo has no qualms using all of that to just continuously move upfield until it's forced out of bounds, which gets you the most amount of yardage while still actually saving you from the tackle. So in terms of building morale, Combo is also exceptionally good in that regard. Again, just going to run through it once and then I'll talk about what's going on here. Oh, I should have put this at the beginning. This is just another example of how Combo can keep you so settled and so reliable in the passing game. Again, those were just little bonuses. They weren't really anything that shows anything good about how Combo runs. That's just Combo is pretty good at catching the ball, especially for halfbacks. Now, if you've been paying attention to what I've been saying, maybe you could see it that time. But Combo loves to play with angles. This is once again a sweep. So the play art is to just go out and then cut up out here. But you'll notice that when you have combo, north-south, or slippery as your styles, a lot of times you'll see this kind of push-up field from them. On north-south and slippery, it's just built into the style. It just wants to push upfield first, and it wants to keep pushing upfield. But on combo, it just goes by what it sees. So the first read that he gets as he's getting the ball is that blockers are going to position, but that his edge block has lost his guy. This guy's doing a really dumb thing afterwards, but he's worried about it. He doesn't like the fact that if he goes out right now, people could get through the gaps and cut him off. So, instead of taking it straight out, he starts pushing upfield, following his block and getting there until someone breaks free right here. And he has the awareness to immediately cut it outfield to get away from him and to start his curve there. Once the blocking has already been engaged, once the secondary defense has been pulled down from him going, upfield, then he's going to start his sweep out. And with, 82 sprint and a little bit of luck, he's able to get in front of everyone and just run it in. I guess I should say behind everyone. But, these are the kind of things that Slippery can do if you build a back that has a lot of awareness. Or not Slippery, I'm sorry, Combo. Slippery is also very good at using awareness, like I've said. But Combo just has the freedom of movement to really give you something special at times. It's hard to choose it because there's just faster acceleration on Slippery and on Elusive. And there's better balance on north-south and power. So however you're going, it's kind of hard to choose Combo unless specifically you're building a back like this who wants to use little bits of both power and elusive to get things done, but wants to rely on a high amount of awareness for his pathing and a high amount of sprint to get that job done. But there are other ways to build combo backs. They just probably would do better on north, south, or slippery depending on how you built them versus straight up on combo. It is a very, very difficult style to get to work the best out of any that you would choose. So if you're looking through styles and trying to pick one, combo probably should be the one you look at after you've checked out other ones. It's good in its own way, but it's just, you really have to build specifically to it to get it to shine by either doing something like this or doing something like kind of like Slombo did on Grape Apes. Even there, I think Slombo in general would be better on north-south just to keep them moving upfield. But once again, you're going to see just basically the same thing that I've been talking about this entire time. It's only 6 games, but there's a lot of examples of him using his combo running well because of that high awareness. Gets the ball, and right now he's reading the field. and he sees that he's got one free blocker, one guy who's kind of caught up here, going back and forth about who's going to actually pick up this guy, and three guys that are all going to be free to come after him. Now he could try to set an edge, he could try to do a lot of things, and he's going to try to do basically just that. He gets the ball, and he's always kind of slow to accelerate, but he actually takes a little bit longer there than he normally does. Just to kind of give this guy a chance to get around and get up here to set an edge for him. And then he once again moves himself upfield. This time, not as much taking a hard cut upfield, but sliding because he's worried about this guy coming through. And it draws the defender down. The safety bites on the inside. For some reason, the blocker is staying to the inside, and I don't know why. I guess because he's reading that the safety is biting inside, so he's just going to meet him there. But yeah, could have been very bad, and he should have been going outside. But you can't ask for good lead block awareness in pickup games. So he gets around that edge, and then again, it's just the sprint that does everything else for him. Aside from right there, you saw a little bit of that ability to avoid or to kind of stray into that sideline area, because usually this level right here is where halfbacks don't like to approach the sideline much from. They like to stay right at that level. But he recognizes he's not going to get around this guy unless he gives it just a little bit more there. And other styles, when they get in there, they'll trigger the sideline avoidance and they'll cut back real hard and they'll get tackled. But he just kind of smoothly sweeps into there and then sweeps back out to get the room that he needs to get back to where he feels safe away from the sideline, but used his room, and he's able to get a diving tackle out of it that misses. So he gained all the yardage that he needed to right there out of just little bitty moves that kind of made the difference. Again, that's kind of a theme with combo, is that it doesn't look impressive. Even when you have somebody who runs it exceptionally well, it kind of just looks like the team is doing it for them. But that's the thing. The team can only do so much. And it's oftentimes little moves that the halfback makes that really make all the difference in actually getting you those extra yards and keeping momentum building for the team in general. Like right here, good counterplay. Unfortunately, these two players stayed out. Like they're cutting back now, but they kind of stayed outside pretty well. Like they didn't really cut in as hard as everybody else. Everybody else kind of backs off and goes to this side like it's going to be, terrible. Their reaction is bad, but it's late. And since it's late, they're able to recover from it better than most. We also have a pretty good recovery by the linebacker here. So now halfback is again reading the field. And he's seeing two blockers and three defenders. And he's seeing that this guy is going to have trouble getting to this blocker because of the distance that they have. So, once again, he does the dangerous thing and turns it upfield. And the wide receiver is continuing to move in to try to find out where he can make this block. And if he would have continued to run out with him meandering in like this, could have gotten run over the top, could have gotten met by one of these guys, could have ended up pretty bad. But since he has that freedom to push it upfield and then use his footwork to adjust and then slide out when he wants to, right when he gets everyone to bite down into those holes and everyone to get that edge block, that's when he cuts it out. And that's when he's ready to cut back upfield again. He maximizes his room and again gets close to the sideline to avoid the diving tackle. And then just continues on out of bounds without challenging this because probably he's tired. That tends to be when they do that. Yeah, second half, getting kind of late in there. This could be a play that he's not the freshest on. Like then they'll do it when they're a little bit lower in stamina. Let's see. Yeah, he's under half. So yeah, that's exactly right. That's about when they start trying to do it. It saves them the energy from the hits and it lets them go further into the game. And it's just generally a good thing. So I kind of like it when I see it, even though he could have definitely got more yards like you've seen before where he stayed along the sideline further. He just saved his energy for the next plays for going to the halftime and going on. Now, I mean, that's not like a conscious decision on his part, but it's just kind of something that the back does when it's tired. It is more likely to just step out a little bit earlier, and it works out. So, now here, we're going to see an inside run, and that's not, you know, kind of where I built this back to go, but that's kind of the strength of combo running in and of itself, in that it can kind of do everything when it needs to. Like right here, he breaks a tackle real quick, and I mean real quick. He gets off of it and he's gone, like moving. And he's hesitating because he's trying to let people get lined up for blockers, and he's also got a free blocker here that he's hoping can get downfield for him. So he fakes a little bit that way. He starts pushing out. Guy gets off of his block and he's able to shim that tackle as well. A lot of those don't actually count as broken tackles. Basically, if he avoids the defender without actually getting touched, like either by a diving tackle or by sidestepping so hard that the tackle attempt just doesn't engage, there's no broken tackle. Like the guy has to get a hold of him and actually start the tackle and interaction for it to be a broken tackle. So those little quick shims like that oftentimes aren't a broken tackle. And he kind of just meanders here a little bit because he's worried about how the block has been gotten loose. So he kind of fakes outside, steps inside, lets the block re-engage, and just takes off once it does. The awareness that the style has to just kind of be able to do what it needs to in the moment is unparalleled. But it's just difficult to get to that point. And there's a lot of other things that you can do with backs that are going to be as effective in other ways that also give you a little bit more, um, like I said before, quickness of the cuts. Because this guy is a little bit lazy, but the main thing that makes him look a lot less lazy is just how well he keeps himself on balance because of the shape of his build. Because he's got the high balance, he's got a good footwork, his quickness is low. He doesn't like to cut very hard. He doesn't like to throw himself off of balance. And so when he's making cuts, instead of making like really hard cuts all the time, he chooses to adjust. and it works out pretty well. It's cheap, and it is effective. And I've been using it for like literally a decade now. Anyway, on to the next play. I'm sure you saw it there. I've already gone over this kind of interaction. It's just that I was grabbing the plays that kind of highlighted this as I was going through. Gets the pitch, and instead of going straight out, follows his blocker upfield. And he starts adjusting right here, just little bits. And that's because these two blocks here are breaking loose. And so he's worried about his edge. So he's adjusting a little bit, kind of cuts out and then back in a little bit right here. It's kind of hard to see with the angles, but he's really trying to get these guys caught up on the blockers, even though they're not engaging. Because even if you don't have a blocker engaged, just being near a defender slows that defender down because he's trying to engage him. And then with these little back and forth, like fake moves right there, he cuts with all of his momentum continuing this way. And the delay that the defender has in being able to see that cut and turn with it, along with having the blocker there slowing him down, gives him the room that he needs to get around it. Combo takes advantage of so many weird little things like this that it just is neat. I've always loved the style. I've always loved trying to make it work in all the different metas, and I'm happy that it still does function like it does. Like I said, there's a lot of different options that are probably better in terms of like actual raw ability, but this guy's numbers are good, and he does smart things, and he's fun to watch as long as you're actually paying attention to all the little things that he does that kind of just look like nothing. Right here, he gets the edge by once again starting upfield, following his blocks, and promoting an aggressive attack from the defense by moving upfield. If he goes straight out, the safety thinks he needs to get outside. He thinks he needs to protect the edge. But if he follows his blockers, the safety starts wondering and worrying. The safety tries to stay on the edge, but as he comes around here, he gets met with the blocker and then sure-footed fires. And remember how I said that, you just did something amazing to the defense? Well, he's kind of doing this little sidestep here, this little shift. And he's got everyone trapped up real quick. And because he has sure-footed fire here, it just ensures that he's able to make a real clean getaway here. Now, because of the fact that it fired basically with him already going to make like one more little cut and then going to the outside, he probably would have regained balance anyway. But just having that little safety blanket there to really push you back onto track when you're a little bit off balance because you had to do something like slow yourself down and worry about blockers and get yourself lined up, and like he's not moving at full speed right there. He's actually slowing to try to let blockers get into position and stuff. It's kind of hard to see unless you actually play it at full speed, but he usually takes off a little bit faster in terms of acceleration than that. That's a very long acceleration lane that he just took. He's now getting up to full speed. But that basically let this blocker get to the outside of this interaction instead of being trapped inside. So he could set that edge. And then it's the speed. And again, that little bit of wiggle into the outside that he can do cleanly that gets him the room to go all the way. This is the last play. I hope you all haven't completely fallen asleep on me by now. I know I'm kind of droning on and not really doing a lot aside from showing you the exact same interactions over and over again, but that's kind of the way that I go about building halfbacks, is to promote them to do certain things reliably. And in that way, wherever you want to attack the field, you can kind of know that he's going to reliably go do what he does best. And with this guy, because I've given him, kind of a lean towards sprint and being on balance all the time with very low quickness, he just really, really enjoys playing with angles and then taking off to the outside. And the combo just lets him do that. Because he's got freedom of motion, because he's got just no restrictions, he doesn't have to worry about continuing to go out now and give those guys chances to get above his blockers. He can start moving upfield immediately. And then once he gets here, he's not like Slippery, who's worried about going to the outside because he thinks upfield is always the right direction, or like north-south. He is, even with a lower awareness here, willing to bounce it out. The awareness is very crucial in a lot of these like crazy little adjustments that he does and things like that, where he plays with angles to get the most amount of room that he can out of guys and then plays kind of keep away until he can step out of bounds safely. It really helps him to get to that sideline, to get the most amount of yardage that he can, and get the plays moving in the right direction for morale to be building. And those big plays really help to push morale, over the edge when he can pull them off. So combo has always been an intriguing style to run, and I've had a lot of fun kind of just watching this guy do his work. As you can see, like I said, he's got, a very consistent yardage in those combo games. And some of them are a little bit more, spectacular than others, but he's continuously able to get things done, even in games where he's not, just absolutely going off. Because he's continuously building morale and continuously doing little things to help. Now, right here are his tackle totals from those games. It's not like they're super high. He's not really somebody who breaks a lot of tackles, but these are respectable for, as little as I've invested in his actual break tackle abilities. And the fact that he can continuously get yardage like this makes him just a valuable and fun back. For the next video, I'm going to be looking at probably his slippery games, which is not going to be as fun because he's got a deficiency for slippery. And I mentioned it earlier, but I'll go over it again with the next video, more in depth about why he struggles so mightily to run slippery despite having as much awareness as he does. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you'll join me next time. And if you have any questions or comments, I'm always in the Discord, or you can contact me on Goal Line Blitz itself. Leave a comment here with the video. Anyway, like I said, I've been Ray. It's been a pleasure bringing this information to you, whether you want to use it or not. Hopefully, it's helpful to you. Anyway, take care until next time.